no time to talk. Music loud and women warm. I've been kicked around since I was born. You know it's alright, it's okay. We can look the other way. We can try to understand the New York Times effect on men. Whether you're a brother
Hey,
or
welcome back to another podcast of Staying Alive. We've got a special one today. Before you flick past and go to the next podcast, you do not want to miss this. We're going to be talking about some very controversial stuff today, joined with a very, very, very special guest. But without further ado, come on, let's get into it on the Staying Alive podcast, brought to you by AliveAdvocacyMovement.com. Check out all the details below, or just simply go to aliveadvocacy.com to learn more about where this is coming from. Alright, thank you for joining us. Our very, very special guest today, Tim Hallcroft. Welcome.
Hey Pip, how you doing?
Good. I'm so happy
Great.
that you could find some time out of your hectic schedule this morning. Or whatever time of day it is that the listeners are listening to, of course, to join us. And welcome to the listeners as well. Look, Tim, I've got to declare my interest in the interest of declaring interests, apparently. Apparently that's the thing to do around these circles, around Australia. Look, I've known of Tim a little bit from afar, if you like, in and around the vaping circles, if you like. And I was absolutely honoured when he raised his hand up and said he wanted to be on board as part of the Australian Vaping Advocacy Movement, which has been an absolute honour to have him around because he's got a hell of a lot of skills in the area. But look, before we go into all that a little bit more, Tim, tell us a little bit about your background. Tell us a little bit about yourself. How the hell did you get into this crazy area of vaping and possibly a little bit of vaping advocacy?
Yep. A little bit about me. Started smoking when I was 10. Started riding racehorses when I was 16. I was actually on the street sleeping in a horse box when I was 16.
Oh,
And I was
wow.
picked up by a trainer and he said, look, I'll teach you how to ride horses. So for the next 10 years, I, rode professional track work down in Warwick Farm.
Oh, wow.
And our breakfast was cigarette, coffee, and we ate chocolate. So quite a large percentage of
Breakfast of
jockeys in that,
Champions.
develop eating disorders, and it's something that you've battled for the rest of your life. Ask my wife; she's seriously frustrated with that. But from there, injuries from riding that sort of played a big part in my life in the later years. From there, I ended up becoming an OH&S manager in Cuthold Harvey, or Highland Pines it was known. So I started off as a board stacker just on the floor and worked my way up into management through that. I've done 5 years of business management schooling through Mentalizer Business. And then I was also volunteer firefighter and then joined New South Wales Fire Brigades later on for 6 years. And I was the OH&S coordinator in that as well. When I noticed that I started to get sick all the time in my lungs, get pneumonia, bronchitis, everything like that. I went to the doctors, she done some testing, and she said, oh, you've got COPD. You need to give up smoking and you need to, do something about your lungs because emphysema is there as well. So at that stage, it wasn't really large. By this stage, we had moved up to Queensland because my son had a bone disease, and we moved up for the medical expertise that Queensland offers, which is cut above the world. And I was unemployed, so I got a job in construction. And then following that, I met a bloke at work who was vaping. Now, I knew about vaping, but never really worried about it because the bloke who I spoke to years ago said, oh, you can't get nicotine. And when I was speaking to Jim, he said, I can give you all the links for the nicotine, the devices, everything. So I went home and I studied it for about a month and a half and then spoke to the wife. She said, if this is going to work, do it, because I love smoking. I had no plans on giving up smoking because I enjoyed it. It was my health that was destroying me.
Right.
So
how old would you have been around about this point? I mean,
I was 44, 45. The doctor reckons I had it in my lungs for a good 5 years prior to that, before she discovered it.
Right. But you
So
don't
the
look a day over
emphysema.
21.
Oh, thank you. I'm 53 now, so try and stay fit anyway. But the bronchitis and the pneumonia was, bear that noise. It'd been there for about 2 years, and it took me a while just to say, all right, I've got to go find out what's going on. I'm getting sick all the time. And so when I looked at getting my first setup, it was totally wrong, because there was no one on the coast up here on Sunshine Coast that knew anything about vaping. They had no
Okay.
idea. So I then met another bloke who had a small shop in his house, and I bought my second setup there about 2 weeks later. Bought that, threw the cigarettes out, went through the house, got rid of everything, threw it all out, and started vaping.
So was it
virtually
immediate? Was it immediate,
It
or
was
did
immediate.
you really?
The moment I knew that I had the right setup, bang, I just gave up straight away. I put my last cigarette out and said, that's it, done with it. I'm going to continue vaping. I had my nicotine level right, the whole lot, threw everything out, and away I went. Now, this was very controversial at work, because people see me vaping. They said, oh, you're killing yourself on that. So I went into strong study. I just studied this. And a man called Charles Samet, I made a comment on Facebook when I was first started vaping about popcorn lung and black lung, and he very professionally guided me to say, do some research. And that's what got me started into everything. And I went back and found everything about popcorn lung, that it's just an absolute myth. It happened in
Yeah.
a popcorn butter factory.
Well,
Only
technically
26
it didn't
people-
even. Technically, it actually didn't even happen. It was actually a theory
Yeah.
paper. It was a theory paper. Yeah.
So that sort of got me on the path of studying vaping, going through there. The big thing was 6 months down the track, I had to go to the doctors to get my lungs checked out for testing. Couldn't get there, so it went to the 12-month one, and I'm doing all my lung tests, and the nurse said, I'm going to redo all these tests again. And I said, why? She said, because this isn't adding up to what I've got on paper. She said,
Hang
you've got
on.
lungs of an 80-year-old. That's what she said. Your first test shows us that you have lungs of an 80-year-old. This is not adding up. So another 2 hours, she done all the testing, and she said, you're going in to see the doctor. I went in to see my doctor, and she said, I've got x-rays here. I've got everything on paper, and what I'm seeing, I can't understand this. She said, you've got lungs of an 80-year-old 12 months ago, and now you've got lungs of a 30-year-old. She said,
Hang on, for
what
those
have
who-
you done?
For those who have just maybe skipped past, and maybe I just got the beginning of Tim's story here now,
Yeah.
you've quit smoking with vaping.
Yep.
You've gone through COPD.
COPD.
What about COPD, rather? Emphysema symptoms. And how many years after have you experienced what you were just talking about there?
Right. So that was 12 months after. So what happened was the COPD totally disappeared. The emphysema is still there. I've lost over 30% of my lungs due to emphysema. Okay. Now, this is what also led me into a lot more study about vaping and what other countries are doing. In December of 2021, the University of Europe released a study. This is what made me so angry about what happened in Parliament when they outlawed vaping, right? In December of 2021, University of Europe released a study over a period of 5 years. They had 50 to 100 people who wanted to transition from cigarettes to vaping to get off, okay? They all had COPD. Within a 12-month period on each person, they recorded 100% reversal of COPD.
Wow. And guys,
Alright.
if we can get hold of that study, I'll certainly put the link below
Yep.
wherever
It's
you're watching
University
that.
of Europe. It was released to public the last about 2 days, only because I was looking through everything that I actually caught it. I read it and I read it again. I thought, that's amazing. And after that, when I went to go back to find it, it was gone. It was wiped. And so it's in the
Oh,
University
really?
of Europe. Australian government or Karen, she gets rid of a lot of stuff on our social media.
Right.
So from that, the doctor then started to refer people to me to get them on the track of getting off cigarettes onto vaping. She saw with her own eyes that vaping works in the lungs. Okay.
Yeah.
And when I started to really research it, you're looking at the breakdown of vegetable glycerin and propylene glycol and what they actually naturally do. One's a dehumidifying agent, one's attracts particulates to itself. So when you put that in atomized form in your lungs, it's going to do something positive. And what it does is cleanses your lungs, it brings it back to an optimal running performance. Now, the disease that's in my lungs, that's eventually going to kill me. All I use is that. That's a steroid inhaler.
Okay.
I use it once, twice, maybe every 2 days, depending on the physical work. I've now had this around 14 years. By rights, I should be on oxygen and a lot more medication for what I've got in my lungs, and I shouldn't be as active as what I am either. Doctors, and when I had, like, I broke over 12 ribs from a horse flipping on me and whatnot, it gives me pain.
So
I was hospitalized.
if
Yeah.
it wasn't for vaping, you might
Oh.
have turned into a cigarette packet commercial on
Yeah,
what the
I would've.
effects of smoking would have done to you.
100%. If I had not have stopped, because I've got that personality, or that I relied on cigarettes or the nicotine in cigarettes for the de-stressing, because I was in high stress sort of industries at the time, and
Right.
that calmed me down. So I was 2 packs of 50-gram cigarette tobacco and a pack of 50 cigarettes a week. So I was smoking a fair bit.
Yeah.
On top of that, trying to keep fit and healthy, because when you're a track work rider, I was at elite level fitness. I was walking around with 2% fat. I was just ripped muscle. And the Australian Institute of Sport actually made a whole category completely different for track work riders and jockeys, because no other tests they do or did at that stage when they did this, they blew everything out of the water. They were way fitter than heavyweight lifters, track and field, the whole lot. They were
Oh,
just
wow.
blowing
Okay.
them. Okay, because riding 15 horses a morning is equivalent to running a marathon, and we do that six days a week. And in my spare time, I was riding 15 horses a morning, going to the gym twice a week, and boxing or martial arts for 3 times a week. So I was fit as a fiddle, and all my friends were as well. That's why we healed so quick, because our metabolism, our body was just so fine tuned.
Right.
Strength was amazing as well. So with all that and what was happening in my body, it was a bit of a shock. So if I hadn't have done something about smoking, I wouldn't be sitting here now. I'd say I'd have oxygen and not as healthy as what I am.
Yeah, I can understand that. God, what a journey. Now, I believe that took you on a little bit of maybe helping some other people quit smoking
lot
the
of
same way.
Same way.
Talk to us about that.
Yeah. So when I have a curious mind, so I like to learn what I'm involved in. So I started working out how you could build coils. So Tim's Coils came out. My first name was Coils Through Coils, and then everyone on Facebook who were buying me coils were saying, "Oh, I'm vaping Tim's Coils," not saying Coils Through Coils. So just changed name to Tim's Coils. And so I started to learn how to build all the coils from beginning way up to advanced customs, everything like that. And through this got me involved in the community, because vaping was starting to come up through the ranks then. And I was getting approached by tobacconists and other people who wanted to put shops up saying, "Can you help me? What do you need?" So I started advising them along the way. So I sort of helped advise and set up nearly all the shops on the Sunshine Coast, bar SVS. But Matthew, Big Matt, who had the original SVS, I helped him down there in Banyo a little bit as well.
Wow.
So then that got me to the point where I started working in the industry. The Little Aussie Vape Shop was my first shop. Then I went to Vapors Den, which turned out to be an absolute nightmare. And then I was approached to go back to my company and open up Tim's Vape Shop. So throughout all that, helping people who were coming in you could see it in their eyes, their face, they had no other avenue to quit smoking, was killing them. And when I sat down and explained it, and I worked out a way how to put it to a person that was honest, that didn't break their bank, and that they could appreciate it and know how to use that device when they walked out the door. And that brought so many people in. I took Vapors Den was $8,000 a month. It was struggling. It was about to go under. I turned that around into high 7 figures within 12 months with another 2 shops. So,
Okay.
and that
Look,
was,
I want to touch on a very important point there. You mentioned that obviously you've got a lot of people coming in, getting advice in the vape shop scene that you've seen over the years. How important was it for those particular people to get that information and that advice and that assistance and help? And and in comparison, I think you can only get hold of a handful of vapes, maybe only one or two if you're lucky, in a chemist across Australia.
yeah.
In comparison to that, yeah, what do you think the difference is now for people trying to quit vaping?
People who have quit vaping, I feel sorry for because they won't
Oh, sorry,
succeed
quit
because
smoking rather is what I meant.
or
Sorry,
quit
faux
smoking, I
pas,
meant.
faux
Yeah,
pas.
sorry.
No, my
They
bad.
won't. No, you're right. They won't succeed because they've only got mint flavor tobacco, and they've got a device from a tobacco company where there's only 5 to 6 years of research. Okay, so it's going to fail, as opposed to smoke, vaporizo, that sort of thing. You've got 15 to 20 years of R&D that they've put into the coils and the devices. You know they're going to work and they're going to last. And the flavors play a massive part because if
Yeah.
you're serious about giving up smoking, you don't want to be associated by any means with smoking. So you don't want the taste or the smell or anything that reminds you of it. That's why I cleaned my entire house, was to get rid of it, washed
Yeah,
everything,
that's the truth.
cleaned it. Yeah. So a strawberry flavor or raspberry flavor or custard's going to do more for the psychological effect of your journey of giving up smoking. Now, a lot of people they tried Zyban, they tried Champix, they tried patches and sprays. That didn't work, it failed. And we all know the quit program, the government's quit program, has only got about 37% success rate of people giving up. It's just designed to go around in the circle. That's all it's designed to do. So with vaping, it's about 89%. And when you give the people the proper tools, the proper advice, and everything that disassociates them from what they were trying to get away from, you see that they markedly increase their enthusiasm, their encouragement, their confidence to walk away from that. And they can transition from smoking to vaping to nothing at all within 12 to 15 months. Now,
So
from
what you're
that,
sort of basically saying is there's no one solution fits all.
no,
That you may need a flavour that's going to help them disassociate from the flavour of smoking to
Yep.
increase chances of quitting smoking.
yep. A
Okay.
lot of people come in and they say, I'm using this all the time. What's the matter? And I say, first thing I say is, what's your nicotine level? They say, oh, it's 3 mg. I said, okay, you may need to increase that slightly. And this is where now if they had a regulated shop, so we could have had certain levels of nicotine on the shelf. Now it's totally gone. It's the customization of vaping for yourself has disappeared now. And that's why people won't succeed. So, and you say, okay, increase it by 1 mil, try it for 2 weeks, see how you go, come back. And I had people regularly coming back over a period of a month. In that first month was important. And they say, I've got it right. I'm just, using a couple of times now. So, and I always said to them, vaping is supposed to, I'm trying to think of the word here, simulate what a cigarette does. The same effect. You use it the same way. You should be only using it once or twice an hour, and you should get the saturation of nicotine through your body of what you're after. Then once you've got that right, you can step down if you want to go from there. And everyone did. And you tailor make them a nice plan to follow, and guaranteed within 12 months, you never see them again. It works.
Yeah, well,
And it's just not like chemists, and I've spoken to so many chemists. They say, we dispense, that's all. Okay, so there's no help, there's no information, there's no coaching or whatnot, what vape shops, supply. That aftercare is all on the house, and people come in to get that advice to help them through the journey. Because you
but
can see it in their lives.
surely those people in vape shops, they're not medical practitioners, they're not pharmacists. Sure.
No.
So wouldn't they be the best people to be handling people who are quitting smoking? Well, why would people in vape shops be better than pharmacists and doctors? Wouldn't doctors know better?
Well, you'd think doctors know better, you think pharmacists know better, but it's proven now that they know absolutely nothing about anything they do. They dispense tablets. They may know the makeup of it, but how it works and how you apply it to a person's life, they have no idea. The people in the vape shops have that knowledge because they've gone through that, they've studied it, they've understood how it works, and they want to share that with people who want to get away from cigarettes. Cigarettes were going up in price. There's over 7,000 chemicals in them. In a bottle of juice, there's 340 average chemicals in it. That's all. That's with nicotine. And the nicotine's a plant extract.
Exactly. But you've had personal experience, and the doctors haven't had personal experience, but they should know
Exactly.
better.
That's
Hmm,
right.
That doesn't make sense.
It
Wouldn't-
does it?
Hang on, can someone fix up this equation here? But yet that is how things are regulated around vaping here in Australia.
Yeah.
Or at least that's the direction things have been pushed into.
Mhm.
It's kind of interesting journey to talk to you about so far, Tim. Been absolutely awesome. But there is some very, very important information that you want to stay tuned with and hear this little podcast out, because Tim's going on a journey. He's going on the next step of a massive journey. Do you want to talk to us about that?
Yes. From a comment that I made back in November 2022 on a Facebook post, snowballed into the fact where now I'm the endorsed candidate for the seat of Glasshouse in Queensland for the state parliament. So I'm running for state parliament.
So
Now,
the state of Queensland, yeah.
the state of Queensland for the seat of Glasshouse.
Yeah.
How that came about was when the government started to attack the vaping industry, because that's virtually what it was an attack. And over 7 years, everyone, including you and a lot of high-profile figures within the vaping industry, have been trying to stave off the government, trying to get it regulated so that we can stay open and keep helping people. Because at the end of the day, vaping was by the people for the people, not by the government for the government. It was by the people for the people. And it was designed to break the addiction of cigarettes. That was the fundamental philosophy that Hon Lik put forward, was people want to quit cigarettes. We created this for the people. We need to help the people. And that's virtually how it was and how it still is. The government just wanted to destroy that. So I'm seeing all these attacks. I'm thinking, how can I help? I was one of the very first people to bring to the attention of the government and the vaping community about the disposable vapes, the dangers of them. The government didn't want to know. That was some 5.5 years ago now. And I said, how can you do more? Getting into politics was not where I expected me to be.
Right.
It just happened. And email after email came through saying, we're going to send you a candidate pack. Can you please, help out? Now, legalised cannabis is an amazing party, I have to admit, when you get into the doctrine of it. The last email I got was, if you don't want to do anything, just put your name on the ballot. We'll do everything else. You don't have to do anything. Just put your name on the ballot. We need your vaping knowledge. And I said, okay, not
Wow.
a problem. So they knew from that through Wayne Taylor and a few other things as well. Because I was asked to be group expert in some cannabis pages for my vaping knowledge, and that's how this sort of all happened.
But sorry to play dumb here a little bit, but it's cannabis. It's not vaping nicotine. Why would they care about this little issue?
Because the laws that just passed, it affected 1.6 million vapors. But what the government has totally ignored or hasn't even considered yet, it's affected another close to 2.5 million cannabis users as well.
Holy shit!
Because
What?
they can't get the dry herb vapes. The dry herb vapes they get now, they've got no freedom of choice. And legalized cannabis is for informed freedom of choice. Okay, so now at pharmacies, you can only get the most expensive, which is Stores and Bickel and Packs, I think. I'm not quite sure, but there's only 2 or 3 you can get now. People who are on a pension who are dying of cancer can't afford a $400, $500, $600 vape for them to be able to use for the medicinal cannabis. So they've now gone back to using bongs and joints and everything like that because they simply can't afford it.
Okay,
vape
so let
shops.
me just make this clearer for the layman who may not be understanding what's going on here. So over the last few years, a lot more cannabis use, etc., has been via a vaping device. So what
Exactly.
we're basically saying is, not only have they limited the availability drastically in the last few months or this year with vaping devices, where people are going into combustible, where all the harms are, if you like, all the harms come from the smoke, not from the substance like nicotine or cannabis or whatever. So that's what's happening. They're
Yep.
getting they're getting screwed over where they're going to pay up to $500 for a device, which is just
Mhm.
insane,
Yep.
absolutely insane. When you look at the average price of some sort of vaping device, surely you should be able to get something for about $50, $60 normally. That's crazy. And
Yep.
what I find alarming, hang on, not only 1.6 million Australian nicotine vapors are absolutely going to vote against this Labor government at state and federal levels, make no mistake. What? Hang on. Breaking news, guys. Tack on another 2.5 million. 2.5 million, you say, Tim?
Yep. Around 4 million people all up that have been affected from this through the vaping and the cannabis sector.
And
Those communities.
while I get that there are a
Uh,
lot of people who aren't one issue voters, I get that. So let's even say there are 3 million people because this affects their daily health, as you've explained, the benefits that you've enjoyed, Tim, the benefits I know I've enjoyed over the years, and the thousands of people I've been in touch with over the years of the benefits of vaping in either method. That's 3 million people. Hang on. We've only got
okay.
about six.
Yes.
We've only got about 15, 16 million voters,
Yeah.
registered voters here in Australia. That is like, let's just say that's nearly 20% of voters. One
Yep.
fifth, 20%
Mhm.
of voters. That is a bloody strong voting base, isn't it?
And that is why the main parties are now they're in a bit of panic mode because they've seen what's going on. They've seen the swing to legalize cannabis. Now, an early statistic that came out that I read over the last 3 weeks, it was also on the radio, is that the two-party preferred parliament may be a thing of the past. It's going to be minor, micro, and independent government. Everyone's returning to a majority government of different parties. And that's where you'll see Liberal Nationals and Labor going into overdrive in each state leading up to the federal election that they're going to throw everything at it. They've up here, they've already got their signs out, which is against the law. They're not supposed to have them out for another week. They're starting to do sly ad campaigns. I drove past the big LNP bus with David fully parked out on the road on public land. It was parked behind another bus, but you could clearly see it driving up to it. So there's a lot of dirty tactics that they're doing and they're pushing because I think they understand that their time is almost up. It's not if it happens, it's when it happens. Now,
That'd be interesting because a lot of cooperation and coordination would have to end up being a daily occurrence in our governments. That's
yep,
almost something that's foreign to a couple of generations.
yeah. Well, this is the thing that we struggle with legalized cannabis is we take no donations from big corporations, big tobacco, big pharma, all lobbyist groups whatsoever. We take donations from you, the people. That's it. We're for the people. That gives us an advantage because when it comes to corporate bills and whatnot, and they want passed, we can put them on the bottom of the pile and say, you wait your turn. It's the people that we're talking to. They're the ones that matter. We want to return the power back to the people. In saying that, looking at it, it's a near impossibility to do because the government is corporatized. Trying to break through that's going to be a mammoth task. But we've got to start somewhere and we've got to start with something. Legalised cannabis. The Greens have now dropped every donor and they say now they're by the people as well. They're sort of trying to do something different, but I think the damage they've done is a little bit too late for that. They're talking to a lot of people. They'd rather go legalize cannabis than the greens, because we stand for the hemp industry, which if it was viable in Queensland, we could employ all the old cane factories, all the old cane fields, and we could have around 300 billion annually going back into the revenue just from the hemp industry. There's over
300 billion annually?
200 billion. Yeah. If we had have regulated the vapes in Queensland through a regulated vape shop, the government said 607 million the pharmacies will bring in. We calculated it out to be around 110 to 150 billion from just regulated vape shop. This is the stupidity of the government that's in at the moment. They're not using common sense, and they're not looking at the people in the industry that can say, hey, we know the answers. Why don't you come talk to us? They're saying, no, big corporates over here with millions of dollars, and we're going to look after them. Okay.
Yeah.
This
So there's
is where we're at.
some mass. So let's get this in scale. So we're not talking the $150 billion is coming from the nicotine vape industry, because of course we've got the other 2 million people who rely on cannabis. Yeah.
If we were to regulate the cannabis, and I've been asked by Legalise Cannabis Australia to draft the first vaping policy for the party to deal with cannabis and nicotine, and also to put a draft of all recommendations where Butler failed the whole lot to go forward for the federal MPs to take Canberra and start asking questions. So I've got a busy couple of months of drafting a lot of legislation, in a sense, to go and be looked at to see whether it's good enough for them to go forward with it. So one of the main attacks, or one of the main things we want to do, is bring to light how bad Butler's stuffed up with the vaping, and how the federal government stuffed up with the cannabis as well. Because one of the main things, I don't know whether you've heard of this, is cannabis psychosis. They're trying to pin that as the use of cannabis due to THC is causing the grey matter to go into a psychotic state, okay, into a mental break.
Right.
Now, the research I've done, and some research some professors have done as well, shows that it's not cannabis itself, because over in Europe, and this is going to be a bit hard to say, it may trigger a few people. What they did, they got people who use cannabis and they flooded them with massive amounts of high THC to get that cannabis psychosis thing to happen. Then they stopped, and they all showed within 24 hours, once the THC had left their body, they returned back to normal. There was no hint of cannabis psychosis. It's only when they're on high levels of THC, that it does sort of show its face. What they're saying is the amount of cannabis users now are starting to have this cannabis psychosis effect. What that's from is the 80% of imported cannabis coming from countries where we don't know what they're making or growing with it or whatnot. And what it turns out to be is the heavy metals, or the elements left behind from the nutrients given, that are saying in the cannabis it's not flushed properly, it's not cleaned properly, and that's what's causing it. It's the heavy metals, the trace elements left within the plant.
Now, the side effects of prohibition causing more harm again. The side effects of prohibition causing more harm.
100%. And what that's going to do is you'll see that they'll push and push and push this more and more to try and put a final nail in the coffin to not legalise cannabis for therapeutic and social use. And we don't want to legalise cannabis just willy-nilly. We want it under a regulated framework, so it's safe, people are informed, they understand what they're doing, and they get proper, clean, good cannabis that's going to help. And what we're noticing is it's all good and well for people to get stoned, but it's not all good and well for people to get the therapeutic qualities of what cannabis has, because a lot of the imported cannabis has a lot of the what they call trichomes knocked off the flower. It's just the bud itself. None of the good, frosty crystal stuff. So over the last 2 years, I've been studying a lot into that, and that's virtually why I've sort of said yes to running for Parliament, because the government has no understanding what they're doing.
It's very, very important. I'll tell you what really sort of opened up my eyes a little bit during my life experience on this issue. Firstly, I have come from a very, very, very strict upbringing, believe it or not. Don't go anywhere near that marijuana. It's the devil. It's the devil's weed. It's the devil's weed. Don't go anywhere near that. That'll hook you. It'll turn you into a zombie and all sorts of
Yeah.
crazy stuff. Hey, look, we probably grew up around about the same era. Tim, maybe I'm just trying to
Yeah.
make myself seem younger. But yeah, that was the message. Now,
Yep.
I remember my mother saying that clearly. My mother was absolutely distraught when she found out my older brother, had been smoking marijuana. Oh no, that he was going to turn into the devil. Now, interesting enough, it was only a couple of years ago, and I know my mother suffers a lot of various this pain, a lot of pain, from various medical ailments. Without going into it too deeply, she messaged me and said, looks like I'm on the cannabis now." But it's like, well, hang on, you've told us all our bloody lives that this stuff's no good for you, and now you're just trying to be cool. Oh, yeah, I'm on the cannabis
Oh,
oil
on the
now.
cannabis.
And how much are you paying a month? I'm just getting us starting on some very mild drops for $400 a month.
Yeah.
And I'm
It's
like,
massively expensive.
hang on, how many drops? I just get this little vial.
Yeah.
What?
Yep.
Who's making money out of this, Tim?
Yeah. The government, that's what it is. Now, I discovered something in a plant, and it's an Australian native plant. Okay, that's called ABC. This thing affects pain completely different. So when you're in pain, you use cannabis and you use painkillers. The idea of that is it blocks the receptors so that you don't feel pain. Okay, some cannabis does it, some sort of just gets you in that state where you just ignore it. Now, this stuff that I made, grew, extracted, you take it, it lasts, say, 4 to 5 hours in your system, but the pain stays away for a clear 17 to 36 hours after it's out of your system. Now, for the last 15 months, I've been trying to get a grower's license, a research license, any sort of license so I can continue my studies, because I had to shelve everything that stopped. I was told by professors this phone call never took place. Told by a big farmer and farm out, come back when you've got $4 million and we'll have a look at you then. No one can get into the market unless you're corporatized. That's one thing where we need to break that, because we have so many people who know more about the plant than half the scientists in the world. And they're barred from doing anything with it because they may have been busted growing it, or they've got a criminal record or whatnot. And by TGA law, you're not allowed in that. So if we were to open up local dispensaries in towns with local growers and had them supply those dispensaries and have it under certain regulated guidelines that they've got to meet in how to grow it, they can use whatever nutrients they want, but they've got to meet a certain benchmark to be able to be sold. You're going to see a complete turnaround in a lot of people's personas, in their attitudes, a whole lot, and pain's going to be a lot different as well, because you're getting the goodness of the plant. Also, you can make it a lot cheaper because it's local, you're not importing, and you're not, even if you paid 45 cents out of the dollar to the government, it's still going to make the community a lot more money. So there's a lot of,
which is brilliant. So we're holding back technology. We're holding back technology, like what you're describing, and research and development into the best possible ways to use some of the best possible chemistry, if you like, whether it be from marijuana and nicotine or whatever in this country. And it appears we're being held back. So the only way we can kind of get on top of this whole shit show, whole shebang, it seems to me from our conversation today, Tim, that the people need to take this country back.
They do. That's what they do.
So we need to take it back from the corporates. How do we do that? We've got to vote. We've got to vote. and vote these
Yep.
people out. That's our only
It's
hope, surely.
Yeah, it's important now, and I think over the next couple of elections, this would be one of the very start of what's going to happen or snowball into it. These are very important elections because the cost of living is going through the roof, housing's going through the roof. The RBA is now independent, so no one's controlling that. They're doing their own show. And Bob Hawke, when I was riding Bob Hawke's horse, he said to me in a conversation, the moment the RBA is not accountable to people or the government, the death of society will follow shortly afterwards, because you've got people who are out of touch of what's going on around you in real life, and they're making decisions that are affecting these people. And they don't care. They've got their yachts, they've got the $1 million salaries, everything like that. We're struggling to put food on the table. So how are you expected these people to be, trust these people to make the right decisions? You can't. Okay, so the rich class is going to get richer and the poor class is going to get poorer. That's virtually how it's going. So we've got to make sure we vote for the right people. Vote for parties that do not or are not funded by big corporations or any big entities or lobbyist groups. Look for the ones that are funded by the people, and you can find everything about who's funded by who on the ECQ, on the electoral website. You can find who donates, and it's all there, transparent. And from there, vote smart. We don't preference anyone, so we're not going to give our vote to anyone else. So if you vote for us, any legalised cannabis in Queensland, just put a 1 in the how to vote form. That's all you got to do. Don't put anything else. That will be counted as a vote. You don't have to fill out every other numbered block.
Oh, right, because I thought it was a preferential voting system here in Queensland.
It's a preferential.
To sort of make it sound like you got to do all the numbers.
No, it'll say that number 1 to 8, you just read it properly. I know up here you can just put 1 and that's enough. You don't have to number all the boxes. If you want to number all the boxes, then go ahead, but just put legalised cannabis first. If you put it second or third, it's going to go to one of the major parties and we won't sort of get a look at. So it's very important how you vote and who you vote for, because if I get in by myself, I can't do much because I'm only one person. If more of us get in who have the same philosophy, the same game, the same goals to go towards, we're going to make a difference. So it is a numbers game, but we're all for vaping. That needs to be repealed straight away. It needs to be amended. We can't take the laws down, but we can amend to them. Both federal and state elections, it's important to get the right people in there. The Legalised Cannabis Party throughout Australia and state are made up of professors, doctors, associate professors, former police officers, and business people. That's who we are. We're the people who believe the science or understand the science behind what we're actually pushing.
So
that's why I said yes to it.
The Libertarians, formerly known as Liberal Democrats, basically said we are going to stand for no longer basically regulating vaping, legalizing vaping, and having available retail.
Yep.
Are you willing to back the MCQ to be able to
I can't say that
copy-paste that, or?
I can't sort of comment on that at the moment because of what policies are there. All I can say is we're independent of anyone else. As for going forward if I'm elected or whatnot, that would have to be a party decision on what we do. So that's a really...
From where you're sitting inside the MCQ or the Medical Cannabis Queensland Cabinet meeting, for argument's sakes, you'd bring something that...
If someone put on the table that positively impacted the community, we would vote for that. Anything that negatively affected the community, we wouldn't. So
do you think legalizing vaping in a retail setting, we'll say a live retail license setting, for people who are above adult age, something you'd fight for?
100%. 100%. And legalized cannabis stands behind that 100% as well. They want vaping regulated and legalized for everyone, not just in the nicotine, but also in the cannabis as well. So everyone should be able to walk into a shop, have an informed freedom of choice to buy what devices are there, not just given a choice of certain devices that they may not be able to afford or get parts for or service. You know, that's what we stand for, that informed freedom of choice for everyone. So if it's legalizing vaping or cannabis, we stand behind that 100%.
Sounds good. Sounds good. I want to thank you today for joining us. You've been, wow, what a journey, guys. If you've been listening to this, if you've skipped past certain parts, listen to this over again. My God, wow, I've learned so much. I seriously have. I'm sure I've asked some dumb questions, maybe even made a few dumb comments.
No
Yeah.
dumb questions at all, or comments. It's
Um,
the only dumb question asked is the one that's never asked.
Yeah,
And
good
you know,
call.
I am pro training and educating. The more knowledge you get, the more you can go forward in life. It all comes down to who you are and where you want to be. So yeah,
Yeah,
training
well
and education.
said.
Yeah.
Well, thank you once again for joining me today. On that note, I think that's very important to say, Australia, let's improve vaping education here with the Alive Advocacy Movement, where we learn from great people like Tim and like others on upcoming podcasts. So make sure you stay subscribed wherever you're listening to this podcast or watching this podcast being wherever it's gone out to. Make sure you subscribe. There's so much to learn. So many amazing people, as we discovered even last week with Pam. So thank you once again, and let's do a little bit of boogie, shall we? Do a little bit of boogie and get out of here, and have a great weekend.
Thank you for having me, Pippa. And thanks for the Alive movement as well. Awesome.
Awesome. Staying alive. Don't forget to hit the QR code at the end of this. So, not sure what we're about, you can learn and find out a lot more about, become a part of making change, making a difference for the better. Till next time, it's ciao for now.